Eremos is more than a name. It's a way of life. It's our sanctuary, our escape from the noise, and our connection to the deeper meaning of our lives. It's about finding joy in the outdoors, seeking growth, and leaving the world a better place than we found it. Welcome to Elevate and Explore, a podcast where we dive into the beauty of nature, self-discovery, and the endless possibilities that come with living intentionally. Welcome to our journey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Elevate and Explore podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Bailey. I got away this week, ended up having just a little bit of free time where I was able to get away and ran up to the mountains of North Carolina. We had a super great week. It was just super spiritual and just very, very good. We had a lot of different discussions, and Aaron and I had talked earlier this week, and we just couldn't make it work to do the podcast together. And I wrote a bunch of stuff down that I just thought was really, really meaningful, and just something inside of me said I had to post a podcast this week, just a couple discussion points. So just real in short, this week started off, we had a really good spiritual Sunday. We went to church and we had listened to just an interview about a very successful businessman and his story. And this week I've been pushing on the construction side of things, just really trying to get stuff done. Had a lot of good things moving around. And towards the middle of the week, we were able to get away and run up here to North Carolina. And just an absolutely great journey. So just talking about elevate and explore. That's the title of the podcast and what that really means to not only myself, but to Aaron and to many more, just seeking something greater. We have lots of dreams and ambitions of having a great business and having great friendships and having great relationships and being successful in life, being successful in the outdoors, finding peace in the outdoors. But tying all of that together and getting to a point where that is how we are intentionally living our life, I think is important. Um, this story we learned about on Sunday, just talking about his life in his business, very successful businessman, $1 billion company, and very spiritual man. And the ability that he's created to give back to communities and give back to those in need and help spread not only the word of God, but the story of success was just truly inspiring. This man had started off early in his career as a teacher. That was his dream. That was his ambition. That was his passion. A very worthy career of teaching and mentoring and being there as a coach. He realized there soon after, just financially, he needed something more to be able to support his family. And, I think that was relatable to me and many others of just constantly having this burn inside of you, chasing something greater. And his business, he learned about sales, he learned about some networking, he learned about just getting out and being more in tune and intentional with what he was doing. And shortly thereafter, he within a couple year period was able to build a very successful business up into the $1 million range and then exceed that into obviously billions of dollars. And as a company that's a very big goal, it almost seems unattainable for just anybody to create. And I've been through enough leadership trainings and coaching trainings and mentorship talks and some of these events you go to. It's a very similar path. Success is predictable. um, the more you put into something, the more you learn about it, the more you live it, the more you breathe it, the more you make it your life, it becomes a success. And that's a very equal conversation to have, whether it be in a relationship with a partner, that's a relationship with a friend, that's a relationship in business. It's just whatever we're doing, the more we're putting into it, the more we're learning about it, the more we're challenging ourselves, the more we're growing, the more we're trying to develop that, ultimately the more predictable that pattern can become and yield that result that we're after. um, we talk about that dream of what is it we're even going after and how do we find that. And multiple times I've been asked over the past couple months is like, what is your dream? What is it you're working towards? It's one thing to wake up every single morning bright and early, go to a job and work your ever loving butt off, pursuing a goal, that absolutely can work. That is a predictable path of success if the path is correct. And just working for somebody else, just making ends meet, and just giving it your all. But I learned early on that was not the only way. There was more to life than just going to work every day, coming home, sleeping, going to work every day, sleeping, going to work every day, sleeping. And the more that I put into friendships, the more that I put into relationships, the more that I put into challenging myself and meeting people and getting out of a proverbial comfort zone was the breaking point for me that led me to so much more. Having opportunities that seem to just magically fall out of thin air. It's not always by luck or by chance, but it's the belief of that, being in the right place where you're supposed to be, learning about what you're supposed to. What is it that you're meant to take away from that moment that helps build your life. In that same dream mentality, is it seems so far down the road. It seems that it's almost unreachable. It seems that it is such a wild dream. It scares you, and you almost have fears of pursuing something because it's just not attainable. um, I think it happens to many of us where we get into a little bit of a negative mindset where something is just a pipe dream. It's almost out of place. I can't attain that. I'm not worthy enough for that. I don't deserve that. I don't have the value for that. I don't have the skills for that. But when we challenge ourselves and we learn something new, it helps develop ourselves personally and spiritually, and as a team, if we're doing something together, where it becomes closer and closer every day. Um, this talk of dreaming is often the fears of, what if it fails? What if I can't make this work? What if I can't do something? What if, and worry and anxiety. And I can speak for some of the depression side. I can speak for some of the negative mentality of just not being able to do something. And I think that type of mindset paired with a little bit of self-compounding sabotage in there, where you keep telling yourself that day in and day out. The more you tell yourself that you're not able to achieve something, that is going to be a reality. That if you're feeding negative thoughts and feeding yourself with bad people and feeding yourself, even just from food, if you are consuming bar food and pub food and cheeseburgers every day and French fries, it's not a valuable food source to get something greater. Nourishment of the mind, of the body, the heart, the spirit, it all starts somewhere. And getting there, maybe it's something we can pull ourselves out of individually. Maybe it's something that we need to reach to something greater. So there's 2 points to be said there. Is, first off, with the dreaming side, is like that fear of doing something. It's so big, I can't do anything. It's a risk. If you were to come up with a dream that potentially could make you very happy, very successful, very comfortable in life, it comes from taking a risk. There's good risks, there's bad risks. In everything that we do in life, we have a risk analysis. Um, in construction, we use risk analysis. Excuse me. We use risk analysis every day, where we're trying to weigh out the pros and cons. Does it cost time? Does it cost money? Does it cost resources? What is the cost? In business and construction, we have been there. We've seen it. We have experiences. We have the ability to look back on some of the past and see what we did then, and we can use that to direct us into the future. So in our personal lives, it's a very relatable conversation, where we are making good decisions. We are making, some bad or questionable decisions, but we at some point are challenged and faced with just taking a risk, and knowing that there are good risks and there are bad risks. The ultimate takeaway there is that there are so many different outcomes for a situation, but the worst risk is not doing anything at all, not pursuing a goal, not pursuing your dreams, staying in the same place. believing to yourself that you can't do something, or that you need an easy way out to kind of wipe the slate clean and start fresh, which is not the case. I think any successful person we can talk to, they will remind us that life's a journey, and there are challenges and struggles along the way, and some of them are greater than we can bear ourselves. And I think that's where, some of the mentorship, either spiritually and in relationships and in business, is so important, of having somebody to kind of help push us a little bit further, having somebody who gives us this notion that there is something greater, that there is something better, that there is another way. Uh, and whether it be working day in and day out for something, whether it be spending your last dime on a chance to travel the country and go do something new, um, it's a walk in faith. It is a walk in the belief that there is something greater, and there is something greater than just you, and a little bit of surrender and um, ultimate submission into either the mentor, either into God, either into your dream that takes place. You have to get to a point where you can set aside who you are right now, and set aside an ego, set aside the past experiences, set aside the person that you once were, to change and grow and develop into the person you want to become. And there's no impersonation syndrome there, of trying to be somebody you're not. You don't really know what you're capable of. You don't know who you are. You don't know where to go or what to do. But if there's that belief that there is something bigger, then it will lead you places that you can't even fathom. um, you know, Earlier mentioned the story of business, of going from teacher to $1 billion company owner, or in my story has been, I worked and worked and worked every day with this idea that I could create something. And the more I tried, the more I pushed, the harder I tried to make something forcefully happen. Ultimately, the less successful I became. I got in positions that I couldn't get out of. I got into positions where I had to ask for help. I got into positions where I wasn't capable of solving something on my own, and I needed that surrender. I needed to be able to give it up. I needed to set aside what my personal beliefs were, to change into somebody that I wanted to be. Um, I've been very fortunate and blessed in the opportunities I've had in life. I've never had anything just given to me, but I've had an experience in my life where I've been able to meet so many good people in so many different places, and so many just different walks of life and surroundings, that it gave me hope that there was something out there that I was looking for. And I couldn't pinpoint what that was. I couldn't pinpoint, the exact type of business I was going to chase. I couldn't pinpoint um, exactly what the type of partner I was going to be with. And I couldn't pinpoint what my friends were going to be like. I did a lot on my own, thinking that I was the one that had to change it. I was the only one capable. And most recently, I've found, giving it to God, and asking, with your hat in your hand, uh, to help show the way, help me learn something, help me, challenge me, change me, uh, provide me with everything I need to make something happen. And oftentimes when I've had that prayer, I've just had this subtle realization just hours after, that I have everything. I have a house, I have dogs, I have friends, I have family, I have a good relationship, I've got a good job, I have all of these good things that keep me grounded, that I need to enjoy and have gratitude for. And before going and asking for something greater, cherish what you have in the moment. Um, this week, just a little bit of story on our journey. We left church on Sunday, and I worked Monday and Tuesday. I ended up packing the truck and heading north. We left Georgia and came to North Carolina, and I said, we have everything we need. It was as simple as that, that there was nothing that we had to bring. We didn't have to pack this hoard of a trailer to try and do something. We just packed a couple clothes and headed on our way. Um, we got to North Carolina. We had some dinner. We went and saw some things. Um, and then, throughout the midweek, we wanted something to do. And one of them came up that we were going to go fishing. And I've I've prided myself in a lot of my fishing abilities, but I've never been a master angler. I've never been the tournament fisherman. I've never been the person who can just take the boat out and go catch a batch of fish and be done for the day. I've always had to give it a little bit of effort, and knowing that, I knew I couldn't do it on my own. Taking two 13-year-olds fishing was a challenge that had kind of gave me some anxiety, knowing that I couldn't do it on my own, knowing that yes, I could take them down to the creek and we could throw some spinners and we could maybe catch a fish or two. I couldn't provide them with all that they needed. Um, I even tried reading some Bible verses on fishing and trying to just get my head in that right space of that. What does it mean to just go out and spend time? What is it we're really after in going fishing? And I think in my head I had this idea where it was going to be a learning experience. It was going to be bonding time. It was going to be time on the river where we could go and we could just have a good time. And I came up with the notion that I wanted to hire a guide. I'm not an expert fly fisherman. I've only fly fished a couple places. Yes, I've traveled, Alaska and a couple places, New York and Midwest, and I've thrown a fly rod, but it's not my forte. I've never had enough experience to say I was good at it, and I needed something different. So I was just going through the phone, and I found a guide that was thankfully able to book us the next day, and that created some anxiety here at the house, to say the least. There was some worry. There was some fear of what if we just go out in the woods with a random stranger? What does that mean? And I think counterpart had a little bit more of that worry and fear than I did, but at the same time, it was the experiences that I've had across the country. It's going with a handful of guides. It's going with random people. It's going places to see stuff where I knew that everything was going to work out and everything was going to be quite okay. We got to a little river, and from the start, right out of the truck, we had went through all the basics of just putting on waders, making sure you're not getting holes in your waders, how to hold the rod so we don't break it, just a little bit of preparation of building this ultimate story of our successful day. And as we approached the creek, we learned a little bit more. We started looking for what the fish were feeding on. We started listening to birds. We just looked around our surroundings and preparing ourselves, putting us in the situation to have some predictable success. And the more that we did that, the more that we put into it before even putting lines in the water, just helped build that path of our day's success. Um, and knowing that I am not a fly angler, knowing that I didn't know the exact right types of flies, and my submission there to say I needed help was a really good thing. I sat back, I was quiet, we let the kids fish, and they learned so much more than I could have ever put out there my own. Uh, they learned above and beyond what a handful of YouTube videos could do, and asking some people, and even going to the local fly shop and just and listening to somebody. There was so much more to be had there with that experience. And the ultimate takeaway was we didn't just learn about catching fish. We learned about managing line. We learned about how the rod works. We learned about the different types of lures. We learned about different types of bugs and plants, and the ecosystem, and why all of it tied together. Um, it's no story, or no surprise rather, that North Carolina has been influenced by Hurricane Helene just in the past year. Just absolutely devastating up here. The amount of reconstruction that's happening, the amount of um, just community and teamwork that's had to happen to be able to build this place back up, is just inspiring. And to see it now, months and months after, the trash and debris in the rivers, and the amount of sediment that's washed, and the amount of stream banks that's been eroded, all of this gives us this new notion of what that greater picture is. Um, we look at that hurricane and flood damage, and see just devastation. But on the other side of it, we see new life, we see rebirth, we see new ecosystems, or ecosystems being improved for the better by some of that devastation. In the trout stream, it was actually favorable that there was a lot of flood water. There was a lot of damage because it helped remove a lot of the sediment that's been built up in some areas. It helped remove a lot of trees and debris and create new access where it otherwise hasn't been. It was just very comforting to know that, yes, there was this huge devastating event, catastrophic event that yes, did impact many lives, but in the grand scheme of the world, the nature, the area that we're in, it it had some small blessings. It had some positive effect. Walking into the trout stream, and yes, it was a very wild, natural place. It was untouched in the national forest. It was just a beautiful place. But knowing that just somebody who's been here, seen it, and watched this happen over the course of time said how much it helped in a sense. So those instances where we think that we're losing everything, or everything is just a complete disaster, there's always some good takeaways from it. And to pair that with some of our discussions about what life brings, that's the same story. It's a predictable outcome as we go through things where we are absolutely at the bottom of the barrel. We have nowhere to turn. We feel like we are completely washed away and there's nothing left. But the reality is, it gives us a clean slate to start new. Um, our guide yesterday was fantastic in teaching and coaching and so much patience. But later on, after having just some side discussions talking about their experiences of how they've challenged themselves, how they put themselves in some risky positions, how they went, and their story of growth was inspiring. Um, and she made just a really good comment about just having one life. We're only here for a short time on earth. uh, we're given basically everything that we need to get to where we want to go, and taking care of what we have now, taking care of our minds, taking care of our hearts, taking care of our bodies. We get into this hustle of day-to-day survival, and it becomes just a burden to try and eat a little better, try and go to the gym, and try and take a walk and clear your mind, or sitting down, taking some time to write some thoughts down. um, it's all for something greater. And if we just prioritize a few of those things daily, our lives begin to change, our lives begin to improve, because now we're feeding ourselves with good words, we're feeding ourselves with good people, we're feeding ourselves with good surroundings, we're feeding ourselves positivity to help put us in a positive state that can now attract what we're after. um, this law of manifestation, this law of attraction, these are laws that are just justified by life. There is no book that necessarily was written on these things. They just happen. They are absolute law. It is this or nothing. um, and manifestation, not necessarily just imagining these big pipe dreams, but manifesting something greater, is the belief is it is all for something good. The amount of people that we can change, the amount of people that we can impact, the lives that we can create to better earth, better our communities, better our population, is what the ultimate goal is. So the dream that you have is not just for you. It's not just because, oh, I want to have X number of dollars in the bank, and I want this car, and I want this house, and I want these things. It's not the things that improve your life. It's the experiences and the people, and also the story that you can share with others to help spread word, help somebody out of a position, um, help teach, help train, being somebody that is somewhat sacrificial, that you can endure it so others can have it, is a mentality that is very hard to grasp. And sacrificing for somebody else's good is a challenging thing, but it is some of that sacrificial journey that you put yourself through that ultimately brings a better life. Um, that that mantra of I do for others and they do unto me is, it's not give and take. It's not I do for you to give back to me. It's just I do for you because that's what's necessary. Whether it be mentorship, whether it be just lending a helping hand, it's being supportive and being willing to give, and willing to give your time, not only for this spiritual side and feeding yourself with positivity, but just giving not to receive, but giving because that's what makes you worthy. That's what makes you valuable. That's where we find our peace. That's where we find solitude. Um, I could have done 100 different types of trips this weekend where I could have went and caught a ton of fish and filled the cooler and had a great time, but that it wasn't. This trip was by no means for me. These uh, places that we've been able to go this week was not for me. It was somebody else's hard work that provided it, and he gave it to me, and I had to give it to somebody else. Um, and it, that made this week, I think, truly uh, effortless. I think it made it that much more rewarding. I think that it made it a really, really amazing trip that will forever be in my memory. Uh, Me not sitting in a stream catching a bunch of fish and watching two 13-year-olds learn how to fly fish was absolutely incredible. I think there's, that earlier we talked about the giving your worries and fears to God, having anxiety, having stress, worrying about trying to make something work, trying to have some sort of independent control of a situation. It doesn't lead to any good. And when you put yourself in the I have to control everything mindset, there's it's a very survivalist scenario where you have to do or die. It's not helping anybody, and you can barely help yourself out of that. And at some point, you have to submit. You have to ask somebody for help. You have to go to God. You have to talk about it. You have to try and find some answers, or just purely just give it up to chance. With some of that positive mindset and positive energy and these good vibes that you're putting into something, that belief of something greater will often happen sooner than you think, just by throwing it to chance. I think we mentioned earlier about the dreaming piece, it being a muscle, and it gets bigger the more you work it. And that's the same for faith. That's the same for relationships. That's the same for friendships. That's the same in business. It's constant work. It's constant effort. It's constant willingness to change and grow. Uh, that is what's necessary. And I think that defines in the best way possible just the elevate and explore experience. Um, we came up with this podcast idea months ago, and it's just been something that we've consistently wanted to do. It's been effortless in the sense of just having some of these discussions, but it's also given us a place to kind of show up to the situation. Is it's not just about us, it's about so much more. And the biggest thing I think has been our dream of building an outdoor gear company, our dream of traveling, of seeing places and going uh, all around the world and having experiences. The only way we can get there is by putting in some work now, meeting people now, talking about it, spreading the word, and having some consistent and dedicated intentional actions to get us there. We're not alone. We have tons and tons of great viewers on this podcast. We have uh, so many people that have just helped have these conversations, and these are nowhere near all just my words. I think I write down so many thoughts of just the places I've been to just share some of these points. without exactly quoting the person, but giving us a place where hopefully we can bring those people onto the podcast and now have their experiences and continue to grow that. So it was just heavy on my mind this morning to sit here and sit on the porch in the sun with the dogs and write some thoughts down and share those thoughts with everybody on the podcast. And we look forward to the feedback and comments that come from this. We, as we're building Eremos, there's so many ideas that we want to bring out there, but without having a little bit of self-development and personal growth ourselves, um, that's the first step. We can't just jump into something and expect it to work from day one. There's a little bit of effort that has to go into it. We have to have some of that, how to have some of those basics of putting on your waders and holding the fly rod and casting and learn some of the fundamentals before we take the next step. And it's our journey with outdoors, or excuse me, our journey and dream with outdoor gear is very synonymous to anybody out there who's trying to build a business, who's trying to find relationships, who's trying to grow themselves, who's trying to find something more. Is all relatable. And I encourage anybody that listens or watches this, please just go out in nature and take some time. Take a friend, take your wife, take a brother, take friends, go out and just enjoy the moment. But in the meantime, think about that big dream, think about that big goal, think about what it is that potentially scares you. If the dream's big enough to scare you a little bit, it gives you some fear and some self-doubt, and it's something that you're passionate about and it's something you constantly think about, I highly encourage you to start documenting that. Write it down, talk about it, breathe it, live it, and write it down every day in such a way that you can create a goal to pursue every single day, whether it be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, or 10 hours. Just put something out there that you're working towards daily and figure out what you need to learn next. Figure out who you need to learn from. Figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish that you can't, and find somebody who can help you achieve that. And that's a very short summary, and I think 30 minutes here. It's a little brief. If there's any points that need some clarification or we want to talk about, feel free to just leave a comment and we'll be sure to talk about it. And if there's any topics that we'd like to expand on, we can certainly do so. It's a journey for all of us, and we're all in this together. And we want to use this as a kind of a stepping stool for anybody listening to find something greater, to chase a dream, to be a part of something bigger, to find something bigger than yourself. And I think that really is what we're going after. And it's been a huge stepping stone and help for me. And the places that are out there that we want to go to yet, have no idea how we're going to do it, but it all starts with having a dream, taking a little bit of a risk, challenging yourself, growing yourself, getting around some good people, nourishing the body, nourishing the spirit, nourishing the mind, and some self-work of what is it you're really after. And once you figure out what it is you're trying to achieve, the next few steps are actually relatively easy. It's there's nothing that is on earth that we haven't done yet. So I think the takeaways for me is, as long as we're having a goal and dream that we can conserve and protect wild places, where we can build and create friendships and have a good time out in the outdoors, we can constantly teach and train and grow our youth and the people who don't have some of those experiences, as well as just the growth of ourselves. I think that's my biggest goal right now, and it sounds a little vague, but the intent there is, our goal and dream is to do that through outdoor gear and a podcast and meeting people and seeing wild places. So with that, it's a beautiful morning. We've got some hound dogs on the bottom of the mountain. We've got some chickens in the background. I'm sitting here on the porch with some dogs and gonna go make some coffee and finish out my day. So I thank you all for watching, for listening. We're here for you. We're here, just anything we can do to offer you or help you, guide you, talk about it. Just feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to. If there's anything that we'd like to clarify or talk about again, just leave a comment and make sure it's a priority for the next conversation. So I thank you all, and we look forward to next week's podcast. And it's the first week of April, so we hope your month's off to a great start. And with a new, fresh, clean slate, you can achieve and start working towards something greater yourselves. And we look forward to it. So thank you all. Have a great day, great weekend, and stay safe out there. Thank you.